Kevin Archer was 38 years old when his wife of 12 years unceremoniously kicked him out of their Chicago townhouse. This came a mere 17 minutes after she'd finalized the biggest business deal of her career. Little did she know, he was the unseen hand that made that staggering $33 million contract possible. She had absolutely no clue who truly signed off on that deal. And when the truth came to light just 3 days later, everything she believed about her success would shatter into a million irreparable pieces. The betrayal took place on a Tuesday evening in late November of 2024, in the living room of their Gold Coast residence, a property Sonia had adamantly insisted they purchase 2 years prior. Kevin stood in the doorway of their home office, watching his wife pop the cork on a bottle of Dom Perignon that cost more than his father's entire monthly Social Security check. Her business partner, Derek Hoffman, was standing uncomfortably close, his hand resting on the small of her back in a way that churned Kevin's stomach. To the Henderson Pacific merger, Derek announced, raising his glass. $33 million, baby. We're in the big leagues now. Sonia's laugh rang out, bright and sharp, bearing no resemblance to the gentle, melodic sound Kevin had fallen for 13 years ago at Northwestern's business school. She was wearing a charcoal Armani suit he'd never laid eyes on before, her dark hair styled in an updo that likely cost a cool $200 at that upscale salon in River North. She looked powerful, untouchable, a far cry from the woman who used to share ramen noodles with him in their tiny studio apartment, mapping out a future they would build together. We did it, Sonia said, her eyes locked on Derek's. Not on Kevin. Never on Kevin anymore. Kevin cleared his throat. Congratulations, Sonia. That's incredible news. She turned, and for a fleeting moment, he saw something flicker across her face. Annoyance, perhaps, or a hint of guilt. Kevin felt his hands curl into fists under the table. He hadn't sent that anonymous email. He hadn't had time to do anything last night except lie awake planning, but someone had. Someone knew about the affair and had decided to blow it up spectacularly. Kevin is a common name, Kevin said carefully. What makes you think it's related to your consultant? Henderson's eyes met his directly. Because the email also included public records showing that Sonia Preston has been married for 12 years to a Kevin Archer, the same Kevin Archer who's been doing freelance consulting for us under the name Kevin Williams, his mother's maiden name, according to our HR records. The silence stretched between them. Kevin felt his carefully constructed separation between his two professional lives collapsing in real time. James, he started, but Henderson held up his hand. I'm not angry, Kevin. I need you to understand that first. You disclosed your real name and your initial contract with us. The Williams alias was just your business brand. Everything was above board legally. Henderson paused, his expression softening slightly. But I need to know. Did you know about this affair when you recommended the Elevate merger? No, Kevin said firmly. I suspected something was off in my marriage, but I had no proof of anything until last night when Sonia told me she wanted a divorce. She admitted the affair then. The timeline in those messages would confirm I couldn't have known 6 months ago when I started betting Elevate for you. Henderson studied him for a long moment, then nodded. I believe you. But, Kevin, you have to understand the position this puts us in. We just signed a $33 million deal with a company whose CEO is having an affair with her business partner, an affair she's been hiding from everyone, including her husband. If she's willing to lie about something this significant in her personal life, what else is she lying about in her business dealings? He had a lawyer. He had rights. The living room showed evidence of their celebration. Empty champagne bottles, 2 glasses still on the coffee table, Sonia's shoes kicked off near the couch. Kevin walked past it all toward the stairs. Kevin. Sonia's voice came from above, sharp with surprise. What are you doing here? She appeared at the top of the stairs in a silk robe Kevin had never seen before. Her hair was tousled, her expression shifting rapidly from shock to anger. Derek appeared behind her, shirtless, his smug expression faltering when he saw David Archer standing in the doorway. I'm collecting my belongings, Kevin said evenly. This is my father, David. He's here as a witness. A witness? Sonia laughed, but there was an edge to it. Kevin, this is ridiculous. We already discussed this. We discussed nothing, Kevin interrupted. You made a unilateral decision to end our marriage and demanded that I leave. But legally, this is still my home. My name is on the deed, and my attorney advised me not to abandon the property. Your attorney? Derek scoffed. Come on, man, don't make this ugly. Sonia's offering you a generous settlement. I haven't seen any settlement offer, Kevin said, starting up the stairs. And until I do, I'm within my rights to access my own property. Sonia moved to block his path, but David's voice cut through the tension. Ms. Preston, I suggest you step aside. My son has every legal right to be here, and you're witnessing his actions to prove he's not removing any property that doesn't belong to him. We have a detailed list of his personal items, and I'm recording this on my phone right now. Everything is being documented. Kevin looked at his father in surprise. He hadn't known about the recording, but David gave him a slight nod. Smart. Everything would be documented. Sonia's face flushed red, but she moved aside. Kevin brushed past her and Derek, heading for the bedroom he had woken up in every morning for 12 years. Henderson stood, and the entire board filed out of the conference room, leaving Sonia and Derek alone. Kevin started to leave with them, but Sonia's voice stopped him. Kevin, please don't go. He turned. She was standing now, and for the first time since he'd known her, Sonia Preston looked small, defeated, human. Please, she said again. Can we talk just for a minute? Kevin looked at Henderson, who nodded permission. 5 minutes, Henderson said. Then we need your answer, Miss Preston. The board left. Derek stood. Sonia, we should discuss. Get out, Derek. Sonia's voice was flat, emotionless. What? Get out. She didn't even look at him. This is your fault. Your big plans, your connections, your don't worry about the details attitude. You convinced me I'd outgrown Kevin, that I deserved more. And now look where we are. Derek's face flushed red. You can't be serious. We're partners. No, we're done. The partnership, the relationship, all of it. I'll buy out your share of Elevate, but I never want to see you again. Now, she did look at him, and her expression was pure ice. You promised me this deal was solid. You promised me your connections would protect us. You've given me nothing but risk and liability. Get out of my company. Derek stared at her for a long moment, then shook his head. You're making a mistake. I've made a lot of mistakes. Trusting you was just one of them. He left, slamming the door behind him. Kevin and Sonia were alone. She sank into her chair, suddenly looking exhausted. You must really hate me right now. I don't hate you, Kevin said honestly. I'm angry. I'm hurt. But I don't hate you, Sonia. You knew, she said quietly. You knew this whole time that you were Henderson Global's consultant. You knew they'd ask you about Elevate. You knew I'd walk into this room and see you sitting there, and you let it happen. Yes, Kevin admitted. I did. Why? But it vanished before he could quite name it. Kevin. She said his name like it was an obligation, a mere formality. I didn't realize you were home. I live here, he replied quietly. Derek smirked, the same insufferable smirk Kevin had grown to despise over the past 18 months, ever since Sonia brought him on as her business partner at Elevate Consulting Group. Derek was everything Kevin wasn't. Yale-educated, born of old money, connected to every major player in Chicago's business scene. His family practically owned half of Wilmette. Pour Kevin a glass, Derek said, waving his hand dismissively. Let him celebrate with us. The condescension in his voice was unmistakable. Kevin had heard that tone before, from Sonia's father at their wedding, from her brother at family dinners, from the country club members who could never quite seem to remember his name. It was the sound of people who'd never had to work for anything, looking down their noses at someone who had. Actually, Sonia said, setting down her glass. Kevin, we need to talk. If you revel in stories of shocking betrayals, sweet revenge, and justice being served to the wealthy and arrogant, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel now. We've got brand new stories for you every day, each one more intense and captivating than the last. And tell me, what was the first thought that popped into your head when you saw this? Derek excused himself with a knowing nod, grabbing the bottle of champagne and heading toward the kitchen. The sound of his expensive Italian loafers clicking against their hardwood floors echoed through the suddenly silent room. Sonia folded her arms, and Kevin noticed she'd taken off her wedding ring. His heart, already sinking, plummeted into his stomach. "I want a divorce," she said flatly. No preamble, no apology, just 5 simple words that brought an end to 12 years of marriage. Kevin felt the room tilt slightly.
What?
Don't act surprised, Kevin. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel if you have not, because the ending of this story will blow your mind, and drop a comment below telling me what you think Kevin should do next. Henderson Global's reputation is built on integrity, Henderson continued. We can't be associated with this kind of deception. The board is meeting in 2 hours to discuss our options. What are the options? Kevin asked, though he already knew the answer. We can invoke the ethics clause in the contract. It gives us 30 days to terminate the agreement if we discover material misrepresentation or ethical violations by the partner company's leadership. The affair itself isn't necessarily grounds for termination, but the lies, the deception, the questionable decision-making, all of that creates a pattern we can't ignore. Kevin thought about Sonia, probably still asleep in their townhouse, believing she'd won everything, believing she was about to become even more successful, more powerful, more untouchable. What do you need from me?
Kevin asked.
Honestly, I need you to recuse yourself from this decision. Your personal involvement creates a conflict of interest that could expose both you and Henderson Global to legal liability. Henderson's voice was kind but firm. I also need to know, do you want us to terminate this contract? Because if you do, if this is about revenge, I need you to tell me now. Henderson Global doesn't play games, and we don't get involved in personal vendettas. The question hung in the air between them. This was it. The moment where Kevin had to decide what kind of man he wanted to be. He could push for the contract termination, watch Sonia's empire crumble, feel the satisfaction of her downfall, or he could be better than that. James, Kevin began, his voice measured. I'm not going to lie. A part of me, a significant part, wants to see this whole deal of hers crumble. She humiliated me, James. The bed was unmade, the sheets twisted. Evidence of what had happened there last night. He felt sick, but he pushed through it. He pulled out his largest suitcase and started packing methodically. Clothes, shoes, personal items, the watch his mother had given him for his 30th birthday, his laptop from the home office, his books, his documents. You can't take that, Derek said, pointing to the laptop. That's community property. It's my personal laptop that I use for my freelance consulting business, Kevin said without looking at him. It's not community property. Everything I'm taking is mine alone. Freelance consulting? Sonia's voice was sharp. What are you talking about? Kevin paused, his hand on the laptop case. This was it, the moment he could reveal everything or keep his cards close. He chose the former. I have a second job, Sonia. I have had for years. You never asked about it, so I never mentioned it. He zipped up the laptop case. Turns out I'm not as mediocre as you thought. He saw something flicker across her face, confusion, maybe even the beginning of concern, but she quickly masked it with anger. If you've been hiding income, Kevin, that's going to look very bad in the divorce proceedings. I haven't hidden anything. It's all properly reported, taxed, completely legal. My attorney has all the documentation. He moved to the closet, pulling down boxes from the top shelf. Unlike some people, I don't believe in deception. The implication hung heavily in the air. Derek stepped forward aggressively, but David appeared in the doorway. I wouldn't do that, young man, David said quietly. We're recording everything, remember? You lay one hand on my son, and you'll be explaining it to the police. Derek backed off, but his expression was murderous. Kevin continued packing, moving through the room with systematic efficiency. Every item he took was legitimately his. He wanted no legal complications. She looked up at him, and her eyes were wet with tears. Was it revenge? Did you want to see me fail? Kevin pulled out a chair and sat down across from her. I wanted you to understand what you threw away. I wanted you to know that the man you called mediocre, the man you dismissed as beneath you, was someone who mattered. Someone whose work had value. Someone who'd been helping you succeed all along, even when you couldn't see it. I see it now, Sonia whispered. God, Kevin, I see it now.
Do you?
Because 2 days ago, you looked me in the eye and told me you'd outgrown me. You said I was happy with mediocrity. You threw away 12 years like they meant nothing. I was wrong. The tears were falling now, streaking her perfect makeup. I was so wrong. I got caught up in the success, in the money, in the feeling of being powerful. Derek kept telling me I deserve more, that I shouldn't settle, that someone like you was holding me back. And I believed him, because it was easier than admitting I was terrified. Terrified of what? Of failing, of discovering that all my success was just luck, of not being as special as everyone kept telling me I was. Sonia wiped her eyes. You were the one person who loved me before any of this, Kevin. You loved me when I was nobody, when I was just a scared business school student who didn't know if she could make it. And instead of holding on to that, instead of appreciating it, I threw it away because you reminded me of a time when I wasn't successful. You were the evidence that I used to be ordinary and I couldn't stand it. Kevin felt something crack in his chest, not anger this time, but sadness. Deep, aching sadness for what they'd lost, for what Sonia had destroyed through her own fear and insecurity. I'm sorry, she said, her voice breaking. I'm so sorry, Kevin. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. We've been unhappy for years. You know it. I know it. I don't know it, he said, his voice cracking despite his best efforts to stay calm. Sonia, what are you talking about? We're going through a rough patch, sure, but a rough patch. She laughed, a harsh and bitter sound. Kevin, look at yourself. You're a mid-level IT manager at a community college, making $62,000 a year. I'm closing multi-million-dollar deals. We're not in the same league anymore. The words hit him like a series of physical blows. Kevin managed the IT systems for Northwestern Illinois Community College, the same place where he'd started as a help desk technician 10 years ago, diligently working his way up while Sonia built her consulting empire. He'd been proud of his steady, reliable job. It kept their health insurance active while Sonia took risks with her startup. It paid the mortgage during the 2 years when Elevate Consulting barely broke even. I supported you, Kevin said, his voice barely a whisper. When you wanted to start your business, who paid the bills? Who believed in you when your own parents said you'd fail? And I appreciate that, Sonia said, but her tone suggested otherwise. But that was years ago, Kevin. I've outgrown this marriage. I've outgrown you. Is this about Derek? Her silence was answer enough. Kevin felt something inside him crack. Not break, not yet, but definitely crack. How long? Does it matter? Yes, it matters. You're my wife. 6 months, she said, and there wasn't even the decency of shame in her admission. He understands my ambitions. He operates in the same world I do. You'd be happy staying in that little IT job forever, fixing professors' email passwords and feeling satisfied with mediocrity. The sheer cruelty of it took his breath away. This wasn't the woman he'd married. The Sonia he'd fallen in love with had been driven, yes, but also kind. She'd held his hand at his father's funeral. She'd celebrated when he got his first promotion. She tossed aside 12 years of marriage as if they were utterly meaningless. He paused, a battle raging within him. He thought of his mother's unwavering principles, his father's strong moral compass, and the kind of man he had always strived to be. But Henderson Global deserves to base its decision on sound business judgment, not on my personal bitterness. If you decide to terminate the contract, it should be because you genuinely believe Elevate Consulting presents a real risk to your company's reputation and its operations, not because you're doing me some kind of favor. Henderson's expression softened, replaced by something resembling respect. That's precisely what I needed to hear from you, Kevin. And, for what it's worth, I think you're handling this situation with remarkable grace, all things considered. I certainly don't feel graceful, Kevin confessed. I feel like my entire life has just exploded into a million pieces. Henderson stood up, pausing thoughtfully. One more thing. Sonia Preston is scheduled to fly to Dallas this Friday for the merger celebration. We're moving that meeting up to tomorrow, Thursday, and we're reframing it as a working session, not a celebration. She needs to understand that we have some very serious questions about Elevate's operations and its leadership. He paused, then asked, "Will you inform her about the anonymous email?" "No," Kevin replied. "We'll tell her we've received concerning information that needs to be addressed. We won't reveal the source or specific details until we've had the opportunity to investigate thoroughly." Henderson's voice hardened slightly. "She's going to figure out eventually that you're our consultant on this. When that happens, things could get very ugly." Kevin considered the implications. Sonia discovering that her soon-to-be ex-husband was the very person who had vetted her company, who had made her deal possible, and who could potentially destroy it all with a single conversation. The wedding photo stayed on the nightstand. Let Sonia deal with it. As he carried his first load downstairs, Sonia followed him, her voice taking on a pleading quality he hadn't heard in years. "Kevin, please, can we talk about this rationally? I know I hurt you. I know I should have handled things better, but we can work out a fair agreement without lawyers and courts and all this drama." Kevin set down his suitcase and turned to face her. Really look at her. The woman he had loved for 13 years. The woman he had supported, believed in, sacrificed for. The woman who had looked him in the eye less than 24 hours ago and called him mediocre. "You threw me out, Sonia. Minutes after celebrating the biggest deal of your career, a deal I helped to make possible, though you don't know that yet. You told me you'd outgrown me. You said I was mediocre. You admitted you'd been cheating on me for 6 months. His voice was calm, almost gentle, which made the words cut even deeper. "There is no rational conversation to be had here. You made your choice. Now you get to live with the consequences." "What do you mean you helped make the deal possible?" Sonia's eyes narrowed. "You'll find out soon enough." Kevin picked up his suitcase again. "I have a flight to Dallas at 11. I need to finish packing." "Dallas?" Sonia's face went pale. "Why are you going to Dallas?" Kevin didn't answer. He made 3 more trips between the bedroom and his car, his father standing guard the entire time, making sure Derek didn't try anything stupid. On his final trip, Kevin stopped in the home office, the room where Sonia had spent countless hours building Elevate Consulting while Kevin had supported her in every possible way. The walls were covered with awards, articles, and photos of Sonia with various business leaders and politicians. Not a single picture of Kevin. It was like he had never existed in her success story. There was one photo he wanted, though. "I see what I lost. Sonia, I'm going to tell Henderson I accept their terms. I'll step down temporarily, let them audit everything, prove that Elevate is solid, and I'm going to end the partnership with Derek. You were right about him. He was using me, using the business, and I was too blind to see it." "That's probably smart," Kevin said. And then she took a shaky breath. "I'm going to sign whatever divorce papers your attorney sends me. I'm not going to fight you on the settlement. Whatever you want, it's yours. The townhouse, half the business, all of it. You earned it, Kevin. You earned every bit of it, and I should have valued that all along." Kevin studied her face, trying to see if this was manipulation or genuine remorse. He'd been fooled before, but there was something in her expression, a brokenness, a humility that he'd never seen before. "I don't want to destroy you, Sonia. I never did. I know. And that just makes this worse, doesn't it? Because even now, even after everything I've done, you're still being decent to me. You could have told Henderson to kill the deal entirely. You could have made me lose everything. But you didn't. Because that's not who I am," Kevin said simply. "And despite everything, I still remember the woman I married, the woman who used to care about people, not just success. I hope you find her again, Sonia. I really do." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of 12 years pressing down on both of them. "For what it's worth," Sonia said finally, "you were never mediocre. You were extraordinary, and I was too stupid and too selfish to see it." There was a knock on the door. Henderson's assistant peeked in. "Miss Preston, the board is ready for your answer." Sonia stood, straightening her suit, wiping away the last of her tears. She looked at Kevin one more time. "Thank you for everything. She'd promised him they were partners, building something together. "I want you out tonight," Sonia continued, her voice now cold and businesslike. "Derek's already contacted his attorney. We'll handle the divorce quickly and cleanly. You'll get what's fair." "Fair?" Kevin laughed, but there was no humor in it. "What's fair, Sonia? Half of everything you built on my support? Half of the business I helped fund in the beginning? You put in $12,000 4 years ago," she snapped. "I've made millions since then. Don't confuse your small contribution with actual partnership." Something shifted in Kevin's chest. The crack widened. He thought about the late nights he'd spent working on Elevate's website design free of charge, the connections he'd made through his college's business advisory board, introducing Sonia to potential clients, the countless family dinners he'd suffered through with her condescending parents, smiling through their barely concealed contempt because Sonia asked him to keep the peace. But there was something else. Something Sonia didn't know. Something that had happened just 3 weeks ago in a conference room in Dallas. Kevin had a second job, freelance IT consulting for large corporations, work he did under his mother's maiden name, Kevin Williams. It was selective, high-paying contract work that he kept separate from his regular employment, building a solid reputation in cybersecurity and enterprise systems. Sonia didn't know about it because she'd stopped asking about his work 2 years ago, stopped caring about anything that didn't directly benefit her burgeoning empire. One of his biggest clients was Henderson Global Technologies, a multinational corporation looking to expand into new markets. 3 weeks ago, their CEO, James Henderson, had asked Kevin to vet a potential merger partner. Henderson Global was considering a $33 million contract with a Chicago-based consulting firm. That firm was Elevate Consulting Group. "Let it get ugly," Kevin stated quietly, a newfound resolve in his voice. "I'm done protecting her from the consequences of her actions." After Henderson left, Kevin remained in the coffee shop for another 20 minutes, trying to process everything that had just transpired. Someone had sent that anonymous email, someone who knew about the affair and wanted to expose it all. Asterisk who? Asterisk a friend? An enemy? A concerned employee at Elevate who had witnessed things they shouldn't have? His phone buzzed, jolting him from his thoughts. It was Maria Rodriguez, the attorney he had emailed late last night. "Mr. Archer," she said briskly, "I receive your email. I can see you this afternoon at 2 if that works for you. Please bring any financial documents you have access to, and we'll begin building your case." "I'll be there," Kevin confirmed. "One quick question before we meet. Is your wife aware that you've retained counsel?" "Not yet," Kevin responded. "Good. Let's keep it that way for now." The element of surprise can often be our most effective weapon. After hanging up, Kevin drove to Northwestern Illinois Community College, where he was technically supposed to be working his regular job. But his mind was a million miles away from help desk tickets and network maintenance. He went directly to his office, closed the door, and began meticulously documenting everything. He pulled up his personal email archives and started forwarding relevant messages to a secure folder. Every email where Sonia had dismissed his contributions. Every text where she had made him feel inadequate. Every message that illustrated how she had slowly pushed him to the margins of her increasingly extravagant life. He documented the timeline of his freelance consulting work, clearly demonstrating that he had built a successful secondary career that Sonia knew nothing about because she had stopped caring about his professional development years ago. On the corner of her desk, facing away from her usual line of sight, was a picture from their honeymoon in Santorini. They looked impossibly young, impossibly happy. Sonia was laughing at something Kevin had said, her eyes full of love and possibility. He picked up the frame and looked at it for a long moment. That woman, the one in the photo, she was worth 12 years of his life. But that woman didn't exist anymore. Kevin put the photo back exactly where it had been and walked out. In the foyer, Sonia tried one more time. "Kevin, please. Whatever you're planning, whatever you think you know, let's just talk like adults. Like the partners we used to be." "We were never partners, Sonia. Not really. I was your support staff, your safety net, the person who made it possible for you to take risks because you knew I'd be there to catch you if you fell." Kevin opened the front door. "But you don't need me anymore. You have Derek. You have your success. You have everything you wanted." So, why do you look so worried? She didn't answer, but he saw it in her eyes. Fear. Real, genuine fear. Because Sonia was smart, and she was beginning to realize that something was very wrong. The confident dismissal of last night was cracking. Kevin and his father loaded the last of his belongings into both their cars. As they were pulling away from the curb, Kevin saw Sonia on the phone, pacing in the front window, calling someone, probably her lawyer, probably Derek's contact at Henderson Global. Too late. Whatever she was trying to do, it was too late. At O'Hare, Kevin hugged his father.
Goodbye.
Thank you for this morning. I know it wasn't easy. That woman, David said, shaking his head. She had no idea what she'd thrown away, but she would soon realize it. Men like him, men of unwavering integrity and loyalty, were a rare find. She'd traded genuine gold for fleeting glitter. Despite everything, Kevin managed to smile. I love you, Dad. Love you too, son. For believing in me when no one else did, for supporting me when I didn't deserve it, and for not destroying me when you had every right to. Be better, Sonia, Kevin said. That's all I ever wanted. Just be better. She nodded and walked out to face Henderson and his board. Kevin stayed in the conference room for a few more minutes, collecting himself. Through the glass wall, he could see Sonia delivering her answer, could see the board members nodding, discussing. The deal would stand, but modified. Sonia would face consequences, but not total destruction. Derek was out. And Kevin. Kevin was finally free. He pulled out his phone and texted Maria Rodriguez. Meeting went well. Sonia says she won't contest the divorce. I'll fill you in on everything when I'm back in Chicago. Then he texted his father. It's over, Dad. Really over, and I'm okay. Better than okay. I'm going to be fine. A month later, Kevin stood in his new apartment in Lincoln Park, a one-bedroom with exposed brick and big windows that let in the afternoon sun. It wasn't fancy like the Gold Coast townhouse, but it was his, paid for with his own money, furnished with his own taste, filled with his own things. The divorce papers had been signed. Sonia had kept her promise. She hadn't fought him on anything. The settlement gave Kevin half the equity in the townhouse, a percentage of Elevate Consulting's value, and enough money to pay off his student loans and start fresh. He'd taken the money and walked away, leaving Sonia to rebuild what she'd nearly destroyed.
His phone rang.
James Henderson. Kevin, or should I say Kevin Archer now? Either works, Kevin said, smiling. I wanted to let you know that we've completed our audit of Elevate Consulting.
You were right. The business is solid.
Sonia's stepping back into the CEO role next month, and honestly, the time away seems to have done her good. She's more focused, more humble, more aware of her blind spots. Kevin had spent a week meticulously analyzing Elevate systems, security protocols, and business operations. He'd written a comprehensive report. He'd sat across from James Henderson in a conference room overlooking the Dallas skyline and given his professional recommendation. They're solid, Kevin had said. Their systems are robust, their client retention is impressive, and their growth trajectory is sustainable. I'd approve the deal. James Henderson had signed off based on Kevin's endorsement. The very deal Sonia had just celebrated. The deal that made her feel entitled to throw away their marriage. She had no idea. They had no idea. And Kevin wasn't going to tell them, not yet. I'll pack my things, Kevin said quietly. Sonia's expression flickered. Was that surprise? Relief? But she nodded. There's a Marriott on West Grand. Stay there tonight. Send me the receipt. I'll cover it. Even now, she found ways to make him feel small. Kevin didn't need her to cover a hotel room. His consulting work paid well enough that he had over $40,000 in a separate account she knew nothing about. Money he'd been saving for their future, for the family they'd talked about having someday. That future was dead now. Kevin walked upstairs to their bedroom. No, her bedroom now, and pulled out his duffel bag. He packed methodically, clothes, toiletries, his laptop, important documents. His wedding photos stayed on the nightstand. Let her deal with it. As he zipped the bag, he heard voices downstairs. Sonia and Derek laughing about something, undoubtedly planning their future, probably their successful, wealthy, perfectly matched future. Kevin pulled out his phone and opened his email. He scrolled to a message from James Henderson sent just 2 hours ago. Kevin. Asterisk final contract signed and executed. The Henderson Elevate merger is official as of 4 p.m. CST today. Your assessment was crucial to our confidence in this partnership. The board wants to express their gratitude. He created a list of everyone who had witnessed her condescending treatment of him, colleagues at the college, even her own family members who had made dismissive comments at gatherings, friends who had gradually stopped inviting them to events because Sonia's attitude had become unbearable. Around 11 o'clock, his phone buzzed with a text message from Derek Hoffman. Hey man, Sonia wants to know if you found a place yet. We need to discuss the logistics of you picking up the rest of your stuff. The casual arrogance of the message made Kevin's blood boil. As if Derek had any say in what happened with Kevin's possessions, in Kevin's home, in Kevin's life. Kevin typed back, tell Sonia to communicate with me directly and inform her that my attorney will be in touch soon regarding the divorce proceedings. The response came almost immediately. Attorney? Dude, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Sonia's being generous here.
Kevin didn't respond.
Let them wonder. Let them worry. His office phone rang, displaying the college's main number. He almost didn't answer, but something compelled him to pick up. Kevin Archer, IT Services. Kevin, it's Susan Holbrook from Human Resources. Susan was the HR director, someone Kevin had worked with for years. They had a solid, professional relationship. Do you have a minute to come to my office? Something has come up that I need to discuss with you. His stomach dropped. Is everything okay? Just come to my office, please. It's important. Kevin walked across campus to the administration building, his mind racing with possibilities. Had Sonia somehow managed to get him fired? Did she have that kind of reach? Susan's office was small but comfortable, decorated with photos of her 3 children and various community college achievement awards. She gestured for Kevin to sit down and close the door. Kevin, I received a very strange phone call this morning from a Derek Hoffman. Go out there and show them who you truly are. The first-class flight to Dallas felt surreal. Kevin had flown for business before, but always in economy, always pinching pennies. Now, Henderson Global was treating him like a valued executive, a stark contrast to the years Sonia had made him feel like his work was insignificant. He used the flight time to thoroughly review the technical documentation he'd prepared for Elevate's vetting. He knew Sonia's systems inside and out now, having spent the past week meticulously analyzing every facet of her business. He knew where the strengths lay, but more importantly, he knew the vulnerabilities, the cracks that Elevate's rapid growth had created. He possessed knowledge that Sonia herself probably wasn't even aware of. The car Henderson Global sent to pick him up from Dallas-Fort Worth International was a sleek, black Lincoln, driven by a professional chauffeur who addressed him as Mr. Williams, with genuine respect. They drove to Henderson Global's headquarters, a gleaming tower of steel and glass that dominated Dallas's business district. James Henderson met him personally in the lobby. Kevin, thank you for coming on such short notice. Of course, Kevin replied. Though I have to admit, I'm not entirely sure what to expect from this meeting. Honestly, neither am I, Henderson admitted. He guided Kevin toward the elevators. Miss Preston will be here in an hour. The board wanted some time to brief you on the questions we'll be asking. Some of them are technical, some concern business practices, and some... He paused as the elevator doors slid shut. Some are about leadership and integrity. We need your honest assessment, Kevin, not as Sonia's husband, but as our consultant who knows her company's operations inside and out. They entered a large conference room on the 23rd floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the Dallas skyline. I'm glad, Kevin said, and he meant it. She built something real.
She deserves a chance to do it right.
She does. And Kevin, Henderson Global is expanding our consulting division. We'd like to bring you on full-time. Director of IT Security and Vetting, 6-figure salary, full benefits, and you'd be based here in Dallas. Interested? Kevin looked around his apartment, thought about his life in Chicago, his father, his friends, his job at the college that had just promoted him to IT director. Can I think about it? He asked. Of course.
Take your time.
The offer is open whenever you're ready. After they hung up, Kevin made himself dinner. Nothing fancy, just pasta and salad, and ate it at his small dining table while watching the sunset through his windows. His life was different now, smaller in some ways, but it was his every piece of it. His phone buzzed with a text from a number he didn't recognize. "This is Sonia. I know I don't have the right to contact you, but I needed to tell you something. I started therapy, real therapy, not just executive coaching. I'm working on understanding why I did what I did, why I treated you the way I did. I don't expect your forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I'm trying to be better. Like you said, be better. Kevin stared at the message for a long time. Part of him wanted to delete it, block her number, and move on completely. But another part, the part that had loved her for 13 years, was glad she was getting help. He typed back, "I'm glad you're working on yourself. That takes courage. I hope you find what you're looking for. Be well, Sonia." That night, Kevin sat on his couch with his laptop, not working on IT projects, but instead writing. He discovered he had a lot to say about marriage, about betrayal, about finding yourself after losing everything you thought defined you. Maybe he'd turn it into a book someday. Maybe it would help someone else going through what he'd survived. * dinner next month in Dallas. We have another project that needs your expertise.
James.
Kevin stared at the email for a long moment. Then he forwarded it to his personal archive and deleted it from his phone. He'd need that later, not now, but soon. He carried his bag downstairs. Sonia and Derek were back in the living room, sitting too close on the leather couch Kevin had helped assemble when they moved in. Neither of them looked at him as he headed for the door. "Kevin," Sonia called out when his hand touched the doorknob. He turned, some foolish part of him still hoping she'd change her mind, realize her mistake, ask him to stay. "Leave your key on the table," she said. Kevin pulled his house key off his key ring and set it down on the entry table next to the silver bowl they'd received as a wedding gift from his grandmother. The old woman had died 6 months later. She'd loved Sonia like a daughter, she said with cold eyes. "Goodbye, Sonia," Kevin said.
She didn't respond.
Derek raised his champagne glass in a mocking salute. Kevin walked out into the cold Chicago night, his breath visible in the November air. He loaded his bag into his Honda Accord, a reliable 7-year-old car that Sonia's friends had mocked at dinner parties, and sat in the driver's seat for a moment, letting the reality sink in. 12 years over just like that. His phone buzzed. A text from Sonia's brother, Andrew. * heard the news.
About time.
Sonia deserves someone on her level.
Kevin didn't reply.
He started the car and drove, not to the Marriott on West Grand, but to his father's small house in Rogers Park. The old man was probably asleep already. It was past 9 p.m., but Kevin needed to be somewhere that felt real, somewhere that remembered who he was before Sonia's world had swallowed him whole. The house was dark when he arrived. Kevin let himself in with his spare key and quietly made his way to the guest room, the same room he'd slept in growing up. He claimed to be your wife's business partner. Susan's expression was carefully neutral. He wanted to know about your employment status here, your salary, your performance reviews. He said he was calling on behalf of your wife as part of divorce proceedings. Kevin felt a fresh wave of anger wash over him. That's completely inappropriate. He has no right to that information. I know. I told him that we don't release employee information without proper legal authorization and ended the call. But, Kevin, Susan leaned forward slightly, her voice laced with concern. He then said something that really concerns me. He said, and I'm quoting here, "Kevin Archer is about to find out what happens when someone tries to punch above their weight class."
What did he mean by that?
"My wife and I are separating," Kevin said, choosing his words carefully. "Her business partner is involved. I think they're trying to intimidate me into accepting an unfavorable divorce settlement." Susan's expression hardened. "That's not going to happen on my watch, Kevin. You've been a valued employee here for 10 years. Your work is exemplary, and your integrity is unquestionable. If you need time off to deal with these personal matters, please let me know. And if anyone else calls asking about you, I'll be reporting it to our legal department as harassment."
Thank you, Susan.
"That means a lot. One more thing," she said, pulling out a folder. I probably shouldn't tell you this, but I think you should know. We received your annual review from your supervisor last week. He's recommending you for a promotion to Director of IT Services. It comes with a salary increase to $92,000 and a seat on the college's executive committee. Kevin felt something loosen in his chest. It wasn't the millions Sonia was making, but it was enough to prove that he wasn't the failure she had painted him to be. The board votes on it next month, Susan continued. But between you and me, it's a done deal. A dozen people were already there. Henderson Global's board members, their general counsel, Patricia Gonzalez, and several senior executives Kevin recognized from previous meetings. Everyone greeted him as Kevin Williams and treated him with professional respect. For the first time in years, Kevin felt like he was in a room where people genuinely valued his expertise, his judgment, and his contributions. Patricia Gonzalez outlined the agenda. They'd asked Sonia to address several specific concerns: the accelerated timeline of key decisions in the merger process, some financial projections that seemed overly optimistic, questions about Elevate's client retention rates, and concerns regarding the company's leadership structure. "We're not trying to trick her," Patricia clarified. "These are legitimate business questions that arose from a more detailed review of the merger documents. But Mr. Williams, we need you here to verify her technical answers. If she makes a claim about her systems, her security protocols, or her operational capacity, we need to know if it's accurate." "I understand," Kevin said. At 1:55 p.m., Henderson's assistant called from downstairs. "Ms. Preston has arrived." Kevin felt his heart rate spike. This was it. In 5 minutes, Sonia would walk through that door expecting a celebration, only to find herself facing an interrogation. And she'd see him sitting at the table. The board members took their seats. Kevin sat between Patricia Gonzalez and Henderson's chief technology officer, positioned where he could see the door, but not directly in Sonia's immediate line of sight. When she entered, at exactly 2 p.m., the conference room door swung open. Sonia walked in, Derek Hoffman right behind her. She was wearing a navy power suit, her hair perfectly styled, her smile confident and professional. She looked like a woman on top of the world. "Mr. Henderson," she said, extending her hand. "Thank you so much for arranging this meeting." Or maybe he'd just write it for himself as a reminder of who he was and what he'd learned. The lesson wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about destroying the people who hurt you. The lesson was simpler and more profound. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's becoming the person you were meant to be, the person you couldn't become when you were trying to fit into someone else's vision of your life. Kevin had spent 12 years supporting Sonia's dreams, shrinking himself to make room for her ambitions. And when she'd thrown him away, he'd discovered something unexpected. He'd been building his own success all along. He'd been valuable all along. He'd been extraordinary all along. He just needed to stop waiting for someone else to recognize it. A month after that, Kevin ran into Sonia at a coffee shop in the Loop. She was alone. No Derek, no entourage. Just Sonia with a laptop and a regular drip coffee instead of her usual elaborate espresso order. "Hi," she said quietly. "Hi," he replied. "You look good," she said.
Happy.
"I am," he said honestly. "You look better, too, more like yourself." "I'm getting there." She hesitated. "I heard about the Henderson Global offer. Dallas, are you taking it?" "I haven't decided yet. For what it's worth." "You should. You absolutely deserve that level of opportunity. You always have." They stood there for a moment, these two people who had shared 12 years of their lives, now standing as if they were strangers. But the pain wasn't as sharp as Kevin had anticipated. Instead, it felt like a completion, a finality. "Take care of yourself, Sonia," he said. "You too, Kevin," she replied, "and thank you for everything, especially for reminding me that success without integrity is just failure dressed in an expensive suit."
He smiled at that.
"That's pretty good. Did your therapist come up with that one?" "No," she said, returning his smile. "You did in that conference room in Dallas." His father had kept it exactly the same twin bed, the same desk where Kevin had written his college application essays, the same window overlooking the small backyard. He lay down without undressing, staring at the ceiling in the darkness. His phone buzzed again, another text, this time from Derek. Asterisk, no hard feelings, man. Just business. Just business. As if stealing another man's wife was a corporate merger. As if destroying a marriage was a mere negotiation tactic. Kevin pulled up Henderson Global's contact information on his phone, James Henderson's direct line. He could call right now. He could tell James that the CEO of Elevate Consulting Group was having an affair with her business partner, that she'd just blown up her marriage mere minutes after signing the contract. He could suggest that perhaps Henderson Global should reconsider partnering with someone of questionable character. He could destroy everything Sonia had worked for with a single phone call. His finger hovered over the call button. But no, that would be too quick, too simple. Sonia and Derek thought they'd won. They thought Kevin was just the disposable husband, the mediocre IT guy who'd serve his purpose and could be discarded now that Sonia had reached the upper echelons of Chicago's business world. They had no idea what was coming. Kevin put his phone down and closed his eyes. Tomorrow, he'd call his own attorney, not some country club lawyer like Derek's guy, but Maria Rodriguez, a fierce divorce attorney from Pilsen who'd built her practice representing underdogs against entitled spouses. She'd handled the divorce of one of Kevin's colleagues at the college, and she'd gotten him full custody and half of everything. Tomorrow, he'd also send a carefully worded email to James Henderson, not revealing the personal connection yet, but asking some pointed questions about Henderson Global's ethics policies regarding business partners, just planting seeds, just creating doubt. You've earned this, Kevin. He left her office feeling slightly more grounded. Whatever else happened, he had this. A solid job, the respect of his colleagues, and a future that didn't depend on Sonia's approval. His phone rang again. This time, it was an unknown Dallas number. Hello, Mr. Williams. This is Patricia Gonzalez, General Counsel for Henderson Global Technologies. Her voice was formal and professional. I'm calling to inform you that we'll need you to participate in tomorrow's working session with the Elevate Consulting Group. Your technical expertise will be crucial for the specific questions we need to address. Kevin's heart skipped a beat. You want me in the room when Sonia Preston arrives? Yes, we want our consultant in the room. Ms. Preston requested that the meeting include Henderson Global's key decision-makers and advisors. You're one of our most trusted advisors, Mr. Williams. Your presence is non-negotiable. She doesn't know that I'm Kevin Williams, he said quietly. When she sees you, what Ms. Preston knows or doesn't know is not our concern. We're conducting a business meeting with our consultant present. If there's a personal connection that creates discomfort, that's unfortunate, but it doesn't change our needs. Patricia's voice softened slightly. Mr. Henderson has briefed me on the situation, Mr. Williams. We're not doing this to punish anyone. We're doing this because we need your honest assessment of Elevate's capabilities, and we need you in that room to answer technical questions that only you can adequately address. I understand, Kevin said, though his hands were shaking. The meeting is tomorrow at 2 p.m. Dallas time. We'll have a car pick you up from O'Hare at 10 a.m. Your first-class ticket is being sent to your email now. After she hung up, Kevin sat in his car in the college parking lot for a long time, staring blankly ahead. Derek and I are thrilled too. She stopped mid-sentence. Her eyes had landed on Kevin. The color drained from her face. Her hand, still extended towards Henderson, began to tremble visibly. Her mouth opened, closed, and opened again. What? She started, then stopped. Kevin, what are you doing here? Every person in the room turned to look at her, then at Kevin. The confusion was palpable. Ms. Preston, Henderson said carefully, I'd like you to meet Kevin Williams, one of our senior consultants. He's been working with Henderson Global for the past 18 months on various technology and security projects. He was the primary consultant who vetted Elevate Consulting for this merger. Sonia was still staring at Kevin, her expression cycling through shock, confusion, and dawning horror. Kevin Williams, she repeated slowly. Your mother's maiden name? Yes, Kevin said calmly.
He didn't stand.
He didn't smile. He simply watched her try to process what this meant. Derek Hoffman, slower on the uptake, was frowning. Wait, you're telling me that your consultant is Sonia's husband? The same guy she just... He caught himself, but too late. The same guy she just what, Mr. Hoffman? Patricia Gonzalez asked, her voice sharp. An uncomfortable silence filled the room. Sonia had gone from pale to red, her breathing rapid. She looked at the table full of executives, then back at Kevin, her mind clearly racing to understand how this had happened, what it meant, and what she should do. Perhaps we should all sit down, Henderson suggested. Miss Preston, Mr. Hoffman, please. They sat, but Sonia couldn't stop staring at Kevin. He met her gaze steadily, letting her see that he wasn't the broken man she'd thrown out 2 nights ago. He was Kevin Williams, respected consultant, trusted advisor, the man whose endorsement had made her dream deal possible. I think, Henderson began, we should address the elephant in the room. I've been thinking about it ever since. Kevin walked away feeling lighter than he had in years. He had no idea what the future held, Dallas or Chicago, new opportunities or the comfort of the familiar. But for the first time in what felt like forever, he was genuinely excited to find out. Because whatever came next, he would be facing it as himself, completely and unapologetically. And that, Kevin had learned, was worth more than any business deal, any marriage, any measure of success someone else tried to impose upon him. 6 months later, Kevin accepted the position in Dallas. He left Chicago with his father's blessing and embarked on a new chapter. He made new friends, took up rock climbing, and started dating again. Nothing serious yet, but he was open to possibilities in a way he hadn't been in years, a refreshing change. Sometimes, Sonia crossed his mind, and he wondered how she was doing. He'd heard through mutual acquaintances that Elevate Consulting was thriving under her renewed leadership, that she'd bought out Derek completely, and that she was doing good work and treating her employees better. He genuinely hoped it was true. He hoped she'd learned from their shared disaster of a marriage. He hoped she'd become the person she was always capable of being. But mostly, Kevin thought about himself. About the man he'd become through the crucible of betrayal and the hard work of rebuilding. About the career he'd built through talent and integrity. About the life he was creating on his own terms. And he realized something profound. Sonia had been right about one thing. They had outgrown each other, just not in the way she'd initially thought. She'd outgrown the version of herself who needed Kevin's support to feel secure. And Kevin had outgrown the version of himself who measured his worth by someone else's approval. They'd both had to lose everything to discover who they really were. It was painful, brutal, devastating, but ultimately, it was necessary. Tomorrow, he'd start documenting everything. The timeline of Sonia and Derek's affair, the financial records he had access to, the emails he'd saved over the years showing how Sonia had undervalued his contributions to her business. But tonight, Kevin just lay in his childhood bed and let himself feel the full weight of the betrayal. His phone buzzed one more time. He almost ignored it, but something made him check. It was an email from James Henderson's assistant. Mr. Williams. Mr. Henderson would like to schedule a call with you tomorrow at 10 a.m. regarding the Elevate Consulting merger. Some questions have arisen that require your immediate attention. Please confirm your availability. Kevin sat up in bed, his heart suddenly pounding. Questions? What kind of questions? The contract was already signed. The deal was done. He typed a quick response confirming his availability, then set down his phone with trembling hands. Maybe he wouldn't have to destroy Sonia's deal himself. Maybe Henderson Global was already starting to see the cracks in Elevate Consulting's perfect facade. Or maybe, and this thought made Kevin smile for the first time in hours, maybe someone at Henderson Global had done a more thorough background check on Sonia and Derek than they'd expected. Maybe someone had discovered the affair. Maybe someone had questions about whether a CEO who'd lied to her husband could be trusted with a $33 million partnership. Kevin lay back down, but sleep didn't come. His mind was racing, planning, calculating. He thought about every conversation he'd had with James Henderson over the past year. He thought about the other executives at Henderson Global he'd met, the ones who'd praised his integrity and thoroughness. He thought about the fact that in 3 days, Sonia was scheduled to fly to Dallas for the official merger celebration. She'd be meeting the Henderson Global leadership team in person for the first time. Tomorrow, just 24 hours from now, Sonia would walk into that conference room expecting to be celebrated as a brilliant CEO who had just landed a massive deal. Instead, she would find herself facing tough questions from Henderson Global's leadership, and she would see Kevin sitting at the table, not as her soon-to-be ex-husband, not as the mediocre IT guy she had thrown away, but as Kevin Williams, the respected consultant whose endorsement had made her deal possible in the first place. He drove to Maria Rodriguez's office in Pilsen, a modest building that housed several small law practices. Maria herself was in her early 40s, sharp-eyed and direct, with a reputation for taking on powerful opponents and winning. "Mr. Archer," she said, shaking his hand firmly, "I've reviewed the preliminary information you sent. Let's talk about what you want out of this divorce." "What I want?" Kevin laughed bitterly. "I want my marriage back. I want my wife to remember who she was before money and success turned her into someone I don't even recognize anymore." "That's not going to happen," Maria said bluntly. "So, let's focus on what's achievable. You mentioned she started her business while you were married. You supported her financially during the lean years. You may have a claim to a significant portion of her assets." "But I only contributed like $12,000, he said. "Doesn't matter. Illinois is an equitable distribution state. Marital assets are divided fairly, not necessarily equally. But the court looks at non-financial contributions too. You supported her emotionally. You maintained the household. You provided stability that allowed her to take risks. All of that has value." Maria pulled out a legal pad. "Tell me everything. Start from the beginning. How did you meet? When did her behavior change? What assets do you know about?" Kevin spent the next 2 hours detailing his marriage. "Yes, Kevin Williams is married to Sonia Preston, or rather, was married. Our understanding is that you're in the process of divorcing. Is that correct?" "Yes," Sonia said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We're separating. And you didn't know that your husband had a consulting business under his mother's maiden name?" Patricia asked. "No, Sonia shot Kevin a look that was equal parts accusation and desperation. "He never told me." "Miss Preston," Kevin said, speaking directly to her for the first time. "You stopped asking about my work 2 years ago. You stopped being interested in anything I did professionally. You made it clear that my career was insignificant compared to yours. So, no, I didn't share details about my consulting business with you. Why would I, when you'd made it abundantly clear that you didn't care?" The words hung in the air, each one landing like a hammer blow. Several board members shifted uncomfortably. Derek started to say something, but Sonia put her hand on his arm, stopping him. "I think," Henderson said, "we should move forward with the business questions we came here to discuss. Mr. Williams' personal relationship with Miss Preston is unfortunate timing, but it doesn't change the fact that we have legitimate concerns about this merger. Miss Preston, shall we begin?" The next hour was brutal. Henderson and his team asked pointed questions about Elevate's operations, and Sonia struggled to answer. Not because she didn't know her business, she did, but because every technical question had to be verified by Kevin, and every time he spoke, he could see her dying a little inside. When she claimed Elevate's cybersecurity protocols were industry-leading, Kevin quietly corrected her. "Actually, their protocols are adequate, but not exceptional. They meet basic standards, but lack some advanced features that would be expected for a company handling sensitive corporate data at this scale." Sometimes, on quiet Sunday mornings in his Dallas apartment, Kevin reflected. Sometimes love simply isn't enough. Sometimes people need to be broken down completely to rebuild themselves into something stronger, something more authentic. And sometimes the greatest act of love is letting someone go, even when, especially when, they've treated you terribly. Because holding on to anger, seeking revenge, trying to destroy the person who hurt you, that doesn't set you free. It just keeps you trapped within their story, bound to the past. Kevin had chosen a different path. He'd chosen to tell his own story, build his own success, define his own worth, and in the end, that was the ultimate victory. If you enjoyed this story, like this video, and leave a comment telling me what you thought. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get alerts for new stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. She'd be shaking hands with James Henderson, probably expecting to be treated like the brilliant CEO she believed herself to be. She'd be walking into a room where Kevin Williams, her soon-to-be ex-husband, the mediocre IT guy she'd just thrown away, was one of Henderson Global's most trusted consultants. She'd be shaking hands with the man who'd approved her deal, never knowing he was the same man whose house key she demanded he leave on her entry table, the same man who could take it all away with a single conversation. Kevin finally fell asleep around 3 o'clock in the morning. And for the first time since Sonia had said she wanted a divorce, he dreamed of something other than loss. He dreamed of justice. The morning after Kevin Archer was thrown out of his own home, he woke up in his childhood bedroom to a text message that would change everything. It was 6:47 a.m., and the message was from James Henderson himself, not his assistant. Kevin, need to speak with you privately before the 10 a.m. call. Coffee at Legacy Roasters on Wall Street, 8 a.m. This concerns the Elevate merger.
Urgent.
JH. Kevin stared at the message, his pulse quickening. James Henderson didn't do early morning coffee meetings for small concerns. Whatever had come up was serious enough to warrant an in-person conversation before the official call. He texted back his confirmation and hauled himself out of bed. His father was already up, sitting at the kitchen table with his usual black coffee and newspaper. The old man still insisted on print editions. "You look like hell," David Archer said without preamble. His father had never been one for soft approaches. "Feel like it too," Kevin admitted, pouring himself a cup. "Sonia and I are getting divorced." David sat down his paper, his weathered face unreadable. He'd never warmed to Sonia, though he'd been too polite to say so directly. That woman was always too impressed with herself. He said at the wedding that Sonia had cold eyes. And with Maria's skilled questioning, he began to see patterns he had missed before. The way Sonia had gradually separated their finances. The way she had started making major decisions without consulting him. The way she had slowly cut him out of her professional life until he was just an accessory she trotted out for family events. "She's been planning this for a while," Maria said finally. "The affair with Hoffman, the way she's positioned her assets, this wasn't a sudden decision. She's been strategically preparing to divorce you." The realization hurt more than Kevin expected. "She never loved me at all, did she?" "I don't know about that," Maria said, her voice gentler now. "People change. Success changes people. Sometimes they grow together. Sometimes they grow apart. But what matters now is protecting yourself. You mentioned she has a townhouse in Gold Coast? We bought it together 2 years ago. Both names are on the deed." "Good. Don't sign anything she sends you. Don't agree to move out permanently. Don't give up any rights verbally. As far as the law is concerned, that's still your home until a court says otherwise." "But she threw me out." "Doesn't matter. You have as much right to be there as she does." In fact, Maria smiled slightly. "I want you to go back there tomorrow. Take someone with you as a witness, a friend, your father, anyone. Pack more of your belongings. Establish that you haven't abandoned the property. It will be important for the divorce proceedings." Kevin thought about walking back into that townhouse, facing Sonia and Derek. The idea made his stomach turn. What if they call the police? "They can try, but you're on the deed. You have every legal right to be there." And Kevin, Maria's expression turned fierce. "Stop letting these people intimidate you. They want you to feel small, to roll over and accept whatever they decide to give you. Don't fight. Make them work for every single thing they try to take from you." When she boasted about their client retention rate of over 90%, Kevin pulled up the actual numbers. 83% for the past fiscal year, still respectable, but not quite as strong as represented. When she tried to explain their planned expansion timeline, Kevin pointed out logistical challenges she'd overlooked. The infrastructure requirements for that kind of growth would require significant capital investment, roughly $2 million by my analysis, which isn't accounted for in the current budget projections. He wasn't trying to destroy her. He was just telling the truth. But the truth was damaging enough. Derek tried to jump in several times, attempting to smooth over Sonia's stumbles, but it only made things worse. It became increasingly clear to everyone in the room that Derek didn't have the technical expertise to back up his confident assertions, and that Elevate's success had been built more on Sonia's sales skills and Derek's connections than on solid operational foundations. Finally, Patricia Gonzalez addressed the real issue. Miss Preston, we've received information suggesting that some key business decisions at Elevate have been influenced by personal relationships rather than sound business judgment. Can you address that? Sonia's eyes widened. I don't know what you're referring to. We're referring to your relationship with Mr. Hoffman. Our information suggests that you and he have been involved personally for approximately 6 months, and that this relationship has impacted your professional decision-making. The silence was deafening. Sonia looked at Kevin, and he saw the exact moment she realized he'd known. He'd known about the affair, and he'd let her walk into this room blind. Our personal relationship, Derek said, his voice tight, has nothing to do with our business capabilities. Doesn't it? Henderson asked. Because from where I'm sitting, it suggests a pattern of deception and poor judgment. You've been lying to MS. Dad, I'm not saying I told you so. I'm saying you'll be better off. David picked up his paper again. A man needs a partner, not someone who makes him feel small. Your mother worked 2 jobs while I built the shop, and never once did she make me feel like I wasn't enough. Kevin felt a lump form in his throat. His mother had passed away 5 years ago, right before Sonia's business started taking off. She would have known what to do right now. She always knew what to do. I have a meeting, Kevin said, checking his watch. Important client. I'll be back this afternoon. You're staying here long as you need, David said firmly. This is your home. Always was, always will be. The words meant more than Kevin could express, so he just squeezed his father's shoulder and headed out. Legacy Roasters was a small coffee shop in Lincoln Park, far enough from Sonia's world that there was little chance of running into anyone who knew her. Kevin arrived 10 minutes early and ordered an Americano, then took a seat in the back corner where he could see the door. James Henderson walked in at exactly 8 a.m. He was in his mid-50s, tall and distinguished, wearing a tailored gray suit that probably cost more than Kevin's monthly salary at the college. But unlike Derek Hoffman's ostentatious displays of wealth, Henderson carried himself with understated confidence. He'd built Henderson Global from a small tech startup 30 years ago, and every line on his face told a story of hard-won success. Kevin, Henderson said, shaking his hand firmly before sitting down. Thanks for meeting on such short notice. He brought his own coffee. Of course. Your message said it was urgent. Henderson pulled out a tablet and set it on the table between them. I received some information late last night that's causing the board considerable concern about the Elevate merger. Kevin's stomach tightened. What kind of information? An anonymous email was sent to our compliance department. Kevin left her office feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Powerful. Not because of money or status or professional success, but because he had finally stopped accepting other people's assessment of his worth. He drove back to Rogers Park and found his father in the garage, working on an old radio. David Archer could fix anything electronic. It was where Kevin had learned his skills. Dad, Kevin said, I need your help tomorrow. I have to fly to Dallas for a business meeting, but in the morning, I need to go back to the townhouse to pack more of my stuff. Can you come with me? David set down his soldering iron. Of course. What time? Early 7 a.m. My lawyer says I need a witness. Someone to make sure Sonia and her boyfriend don't try anything. His father nodded slowly. I never liked that house anyway. Too fancy, too cold, like the woman who picked it out. That night, Kevin lay in his childhood bed again. But this time, he wasn't wallowing in grief. He was planning. Tomorrow would be brutal, facing Sonia at the townhouse in the morning, then flying to Dallas to sit across from her again in the afternoon. 2 confrontations in one day, but he was ready. For the first time since Sonia had announced she wanted a divorce, Kevin Archer felt like he was the one holding the cards. His phone buzzed with one final message before he fell asleep. It was from James Henderson. Kevin, the board met. We're proceeding with the working session tomorrow, but we're not terminating the contract yet. We need to hear Ms. Preston's explanations first. Whatever happens, Know that your professionalism through this situation has been exemplary. You're a good man caught in a bad situation. That won't be forgotten. JH. Kevin read the message 3 times, then set his phone down. He didn't want revenge. He didn't want to destroy Sonia's deal out of spite. Preston's husband for months. What else are you lying about? What else have you hidden from us in these merger documents? Nothing, Sonia said desperately. Mr. Henderson, I understand this looks bad, but I assure you our personal situation hasn't affected our business operations. Elevate Consulting is a solid company with real capabilities and a strong track record. Whatever mistakes I've made in my personal life, and I know I've made them, don't reflect on our business integrity. She turned to Kevin, her eyes pleading now. Kevin, please tell them. You vetted our company. You know we're legitimate.
Tell them.
Everyone looked at Kevin. This was it. The moment where he could destroy everything she'd worked for with a single sentence. Or he could be the bigger person, the man his parents had raised him to be. Elevate Consulting is a legitimate business, Kevin said slowly. Their client work is solid. Their growth is real. The company Sonia built is impressive by any objective measure. He paused, letting that sink in. But that one word made Sonia flinch. But there are concerns about leadership judgment and operational readiness for this scale of partnership. The affair itself isn't the issue. People's personal lives are their own business. The issue is the deception, the questionable decision-making, the pattern of prioritizing personal desires over professional ethics. Kevin looked directly at Sonia. You've built something real, Sonia, but you've also compromised it through your choices. And now Henderson Global has to decide if they can trust a partner who's proven willing to lie to the people closest to her. Henderson nodded slowly. Thank you, Mr. Williams. That's a fair assessment. He turned to Sonia. Miss Preston, here's where we stand. The merger contract includes an ethics clause that allows for termination within the first 30 days if we discover material misrepresentation or ethical violations. It contains screenshots of text messages between Sonia Preston and Derek Hoffman, her business partner. Henderson's expression was grim. The messages indicate they've been having an affair for approximately 6 months. They also suggest that significant merger-related decisions were being made based on their personal relationship rather than sound business strategy. The coffee shop suddenly felt too warm. Kevin forced himself to breathe normally. I see. But here's the thing that really concerns me, Kevin. Henderson leaned forward. Several of these messages reference getting rid of dead weight and finally being free to run the company the way it should be run. There's a text from last night, sent just hours after the contract was signed, where Hoffman tells Preston that he's glad she finally had the balls to kick Kevin to the curb. But he did want her to know, to truly understand, that the man she had dismissed as mediocre, the man she had thrown away like trash, was someone she should have valued all along. Tomorrow, she would learn that lesson. Whether she would understand it was another question entirely. The next morning, Kevin and his father arrived at the Gold Coast townhouse at 7:15 a.m. Kevin still had his key. The one he'd left on the entry table had been a spare. He had kept his original set because some part of him hadn't fully believed that the marriage was really over. Now, standing on the front steps of the home he had helped buy, helped maintain, helped turn into something beautiful, Kevin realized this was real. This was happening and there was no going back. Ready? David Archer asked, his weathered hand resting on his son's shoulder. No, Kevin admitted. But let's do it anyway. He unlocked the door and stepped inside. The smell hit him first. Unfamiliar cologne. Expensive and heavy. Derek's cologne. The man had spent the night in Kevin's home, probably in Kevin's bed. Kevin felt his jaw clench, but he forced himself to stay calm. He had a witness. The board is prepared to invoke that clause. No, Sonia breathed.
No, please.
This deal. It's everything we've worked for. Everything. However, Henderson continued, we're also willing to consider an alternative. We modify the contract to include much stricter oversight provisions, regular audits, and a requirement that you step down as CEO for 6 months while we bring in an independent executive to evaluate Elevate's operations. If they find everything in order, you can resume your role. If not, we terminate the partnership. Sonia looked like she'd been slapped. Step down from my own company. It's either that or we terminate the contract entirely, Patricia said. Those are your options, Miss Preston. Derek leaned over, whispering urgently to Sonia. Kevin could see her struggling, could see the calculation happening behind her eyes. She'd lost control of this situation completely, and now she was trying to salvage anything she could. Can we have a moment to discuss this privately? Sonia asked. Of course. We'll give you 15 minutes.